Now Jacob settled in the land where his father had lived as an alien, the land of Canaan. This is the story of the family of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was shepherding the flocks with his brothers. He was a helper to the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report to them, or about them, to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other children, because he was the son of his old age. And he had made him a long robe with sleeves. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Once Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream that I dreamed. They were binding sheaves in the field. Suddenly, Joseph's sheaf rose and stood upright. Then the sheaves of the brothers gathered around it and bowed down to his sheaf. His brothers said to him, 'Are you indeed to reign over us? Are you indeed to have dominion over us?' So they hated him even more because of his dreams and his words. He had another dream and told it to his brothers, saying, 'Look, I have had another dream. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me.' But when he told this to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, 'What kind of dream is this that you have had? Shall we indeed come, I and your mother and your brothers, and bow to the ground before you?' So his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Now his brothers went to the pasture of their father's flocks near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, 'Are not your brothers pasturing the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them.' Joseph answered, 'Here I am.' So he said to him, 'Go now, see if it is well with your brothers and with the flock, and bring word back to me.' And I lost my place. So he sent him to, and the man, and he came to Shechem, and a man found him wandering in the fields. The man asked him, 'What are you seeking?' 'I am seeking my brothers,' he said. 'Tell me, please, where are they pasturing the flock?' The man said, 'They have gone away, for I heard them say, "Let us go to Dothan." So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from a distance, and before he came near them, they conspired to kill him. They said to one another, 'Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we shall say that a wild animal has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams.' But when Raven heard it, he delivered him out of their hands, saying, 'Let us not take his life. Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but lay no hand on him, that he might rescue himself out of their hand and restore him to his father.' So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of the robe with the long sleeves that he had worn, and they took him and threw him into the pit. Now the pit was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat. Looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels carrying gum, balm, and resin on their way down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, 'What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood. Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hand on him, for he is our brother in our own flesh. And the brothers agreed. When some of the Midianites, traders, passed by, they drew Joseph up, left him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt. Let us continue our service by opening the black hymnal to page 2269.
For us this morning is a great task. We're actually going to take Jacob and his family to the end of the book of Genesis. It's a really short version, taking them to the end of the book of Genesis. So I really encourage you to do some reading of the chapters that we're going to miss, so you can see what else happened to the family. See, Jacob starts having children. Ultimately, there are 12 sons. There's a daughter who has a very interesting story of her own you could catch up on. And remember, Jacob only wanted to marry one woman. It was for Rachel that he worked for all those years, and Rachel that he loved the most, and Rachel who couldn't seem to bear any children. And when she finally did, there were already 10 boys before him. Yet this was his father's favorite. And you'd think Jacob would have learned his lesson about what happens when a father favors one child over another. But he doesn't. And the cycle continues. We read and hear that Joseph, the most beloved of Jacob's sons, gets the easier work. Gets to keep an eye on his brothers. Gets the really special coat with the long sleeves, something that was also translated into many colors. The kids. This is the annoying little brother. Now, growing up, I was the annoying little sister. By a lot of years between my sister and I. And I'm sure there were moments that she could have thought of terrible things to have done to me. But it was just the two of us, and she could take me. So I can't imagine what it was like to have 10 brothers, and then to have this one. See, if I were the older sibling to Joseph, I would get tired of him too. It seems, unlike so many of our cultural stories, that these stories in Genesis, the patriarchs, these biblical characters are all too real. Our heroes in fairy tales are tall and handsome and charming, able to slay a dragon and save the damsel. Even our U.S. folklore tales tell the stories of men who are larger than life with giant farm animals who travel with them across into the wilderness of the western new wild frontier. These are the stories we understand to be good. It's not quite the same thing in the ancient world. See, they expected their heroes to be real and accessible and relatable. Joseph is such a hero. Well, yes, he is our victim in our story. It's not difficult to imagine how he got here. There are times when we imagine terrible things upon our siblings or our co-workers. Kind of like the TV show Scrubs, where there's a moment, there's a scene that happens where there's this inner dialogue and this inner vision of what the character wants to do, but of course, he never does. And we don't. But apparently, there came a point where it was a final straw. See, he showed up this day, followed them to where they were, walking around in his fancy coat, taking notes so he could tell their father, preparing to report what was happening, and he starts to tell them of his dreams. The one where the chiefs bow down to his, where their stars, their light, couldn't compare to the light of his, and bow down to his. He, the youngest of 11, claiming that they would bow down to him, that he was the favorite. He was probably a little cocky, a little into what he could do, wearing his coat like it was something he deserved and he earned. It just doesn't surprise me that they got to this point. Perhaps it's a little surprising that they followed through. A little mob mentality at work here, where even the most reasonable are overtaken by plans that are being made. It was the dreams that threw them over the edge. And so this week I've done some thinking and reading about dreams. See, I don't remember my dreams. The last dream I remember having while I slept was probably when I was 6, and they involved giant spiders, like the size of a room. Mostly when I sleep, my world goes into nothingness, and we have come to understand dreams in our very modern, well-educated society as a way of decompressing, our mind processing and organizing. Our dreams are what happens when our mind takes all that we are aware of and not aware of and puts them into a memory system so we can retrieve them at another time. The ancient world understood dreams too. Dreams were not something internal in the mind, but external. They told of a reality outside of oneself or conversations with God, which was probably, or maybe both of which, were what Joseph had. And his brothers understood his dream as something, because there's no need to destroy a dream and a dreamer if you don't believe it might actually be true. Because we don't always just understand dreams as what happens when we sleep, but as something in the future. It's why we speak of having dreams for our lives. It's not processing our lives as what's happening in the moment, so we can recall a time, but a reality we hope will happen. I don't always remember that I had big dreams for my life either. I've had lots of things that I've stumbled into, but to plan and will something into existence has been less of the way I've worked. I like to think I've had ideas. I guess you could call them dreams. So maybe we all dream. We dream of our future jobs, or our future retirements, of the things we will do if we had all our money or our time. Dreams of travel, or long days at home, or in the backyard, or on the lake. We dream of relationships, of friendships and partners. It's more than a claim that all little girls dream of their wedding, but dreams of how life with another person will be. We have dreams for our children, our grandchildren, our godchildren, our nieces and nephews, and countless other folks for whom we work, with, or for, or love. We have dreams for our families, communities, organizations, neighborhoods, and yes, we have dreams for our churches. I remember when I was in high school, and everyone was expecting me to know what I would be when I grew up, so that I would know what I would study, so I would know what I should plan for. It was this daunting and ultimately kind of silly task that we're expected to do at 16 with a whole lot of years left to figure it out. I was moving towards working in the church, and my youth director's wife quoted a Carmen song, a Carmen song, that says, "Your desire is the confirmation, the destination is there." And I've often wondered about that statement. Because sometimes it's true, and sometimes it's not. There are times I have desired for things that have never come true, so I've decided there must be more to that statement. It must be something more than just wanting something. I mean, I don't think Joseph came up on his own with these silly dreams so that he could just decide to share them with his brothers. No. In the ancient world, dreams didn't come from within oneself. What if the dream, in fact, was from God? And we know the story. He was sold to the Ishmaelites, proclaimed dead, sold to an official in Egypt, sent to prison where there were more dreams and more dreams. And ultimately he gets an appointment by the Pharaoh to save all the people, including his family, during a famine. His brothers, in their desperation during the famine, come to the only place that still has food and the person who was controlling the food system of distribution, and they begged. They bowed, they groveled, hoping to be granted life by the man standing before them, their baby brother. These brothers stood. These brothers who years early watched their brother approach and said, "Here comes that dreamer. Let's kill him and see what becomes of his dreams." It would seem his dreams came true. Despite what they had done to try to prevent it, despite what despair might have taken over Joseph during his years in prison, it worked out to good. Sometimes life is like that. I've had dreams and ideas that were leading me to working in the church and youth ministry, and those dreams led me here. They weren't perfect when I finished them, and they didn't turn out the way I first planned, but they kind of turned out better. There are dreams of churches that grew in conflict, that grew in love, that grew in mission, that served. There were dreams of churches in small homes in the first century. Dreams of what the church could be as men gathered from across the known world to talk and discuss and debate in the 2nd and 3rd centuries. Dreams of church active and moving. Martin Luther dreamed of a church that was filled with and giving out grace freely. John Wesley dreaming of a church that continued to serve the people and to continue to pray. And the school from which I just left, Eliza Garrett dreamed of an institution that would teach and train pastors in the middle of the country. It's the dream of hundreds today serving soldiers, prisoners, sick, old and young, hungry, homeless, disabled, struggling, persecuted, affected by storms, both literal and metaphorical. The poor, the needy, the thirsty. Dreams. And there have been those who over the years were told that their dream would die. There were those who hoped that the dream that Jesus had sowed in the hearts of his followers would die with him on the cross. There were those who fought against the dreams of others to the point of death, but the dreams have lived on. And they have become something new. They have become something bigger than they could have imagined. They were dreams that weren't coming from themselves, but between people and between God. And those dreams take wings. They become something that sometimes becomes more than we could have planned. Dreams. The last image. The last image is the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, and it doesn't look like much, but some of you may remember April 4th, 1968. This is the motel where they killed the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And that plaque you see in the front, the plaque quotes from the King James like good Southern Baptists do. And they said to one another, "Behold, here cometh the dreamer. Let us slay him and see what becomes of his dreams." Friends, we keep dreaming. We keep dreaming because we believe in a God who gives us dreams and sees them through to completion. We have a God who sees the big picture, who loves us as flawed and imperfect people, who calls us to be God's hands and feet in the world. We dream for ourselves and for those around us as God does when we connect to God and when we love as God does. And even when those who call and challenge us to see if what might be, if the dreams we have might be a reality, God is there. The dreams are bigger than us and beyond us, outside of us and inside of us. Let us see what becomes of our dreams. Amen. Now let's join together.